Has it really been 15 days since my last video? Oh, I better do something easy then, so I can just pump something out. Tier list. Yeah, that'll do. And hey, it gets me to talk about BlackWidow Apocalypse again, and oh yeah, it also gets me the time to procrastinate all the big videos, so win-win. So this is a BlackWidow Apocalypse chapter tier list, but like not what's in the chapter, but these little title cards that show up instead, which yes, I'm doing an entire tier list on these alone because I just thought they were really neat. Now, what is in the chapter can definitely affect the ranking of these chapter cards somewhat, just not all. If a good chapter has a boring title, then yeah, I'm going to put it low, but if a good chapter has a middling title that makes no sense, it might become a bit above average depending on the circumstances. Also, should probably explain the okay, but why vote tier. Well, some of these titles are kinda bizarre, so I want a tier that if I don't get why it was called that, and it's not a good title design either, then it gets shoved in there. Napalm for breakfast. Yeah. Alright, starting the video. Starting out strong, we have, of course, the BlackWidow Apocalypse, end of the era. Borderline immediately, oh my god, it sets the tone of what's to come perfectly. We're starting at the end of the era. We're already through the apocalypse, and of course the title of the comic is the BlackWidow Apocalypse. I think it also should be fair to show the surrounding shot of the panels. Now for this one it's going to be much easier because it just looks like this. It is just planted into it, but then sometimes they're cut in between. However, for later down the line and for right now, I feel like it's fair because my god, this is perfect. Now, of course, this is before they reveal max damage to be an absolute joke, but this shot is perfect because it sort of encapsulates everything that is going to be the future of the comic for at least like 9-ish chapters, and especially as an introduction, this is perfect. Someone shows up to fight a goth woman. That's basically half of BlackWidow Apocalypse. So yeah, I think end of the era has to be perfect, even if we have like 39-ish, maybe more chapters to do, because it feels right, and it also attaches onto something later on, but for now it's going in perfect. Next up is actually the chapter that made me make this video. Chapter 2, No False Start. I like the implications behind this because it's basically saying if there was a false start, it was going to be without hardship, and a true start would be a fun and joyous experience. But no false start shows us the beginning of BlackWidow Apocalypse. Not the start of the comic, but the beginning of the BlackWidow Apocalypse, of the story of Izzy Fisher, of the story of Izzy Fisher and her hatred towards Hendrik Bastardsword, which is perfect. And it also shows us at her weakest moment. She is literally tied up to the ceiling. It's specifically telling us that this will be the worst we see. The start of the story is almost certainly some of the worst for her. However, it always shows that despite this, she will get through everything by being pure fucking hatred incarnate. Overall, everything is pretty much perfect for No False Start, as it's another one where it just shows. It doesn't tell, but it shows. And when you read into it deep enough, it tells you all that words cannot. Next up, however, we're finally getting into the meat and potatoes of the story with Chapter 3, Greeting the Disease. And it is fine, I guess. Listen, physically, it looks alright. Greeting the Disease title is basic, but it's got Izzy's colours. It's Izzy's time to shine. It's the first time we get to see Izzy fight people in colour. She's got fire in her eyes. This is her moment. But that's it. There's not much else to it. It looks almost, I don't know, sporty? I'm not really a fan, but it does its job. So it's cool enough. Greeting the Disease as a title, brilliant line, because that's what she views Bastard Sword as. And this chronologically takes place just after we see that her opponent is Bastard Sword. So can't get much better than that. However, since the base design is pretty uninspired, I will have to keep it from being perfect, and it's only barely clawing amazing. But it still is amazing. Cut to the future. Jason is sitting in his room pondering if he should continue making this video, considering it is 4:38 AM and the neighbours are sleeping. I might have to relocate. See you in like 10 minutes my time, 3 seconds your time. Somehow it was more like 20, but anyway, back to it. Oh, that echo is really gonna get on my nerves. Oh well. It'll be fine. Moving on, we have the first of a problem that starts to become apparent quite a lot. With Chapter 4, Greeting the Disease 2. The issue this one has is, quite a bit, sadly. First of all, we have the start of the theme, or trend, whatever you want to call it, of putting 2 in front of the previous chapter name when the same thing is going on. Even though sometimes they straight up ignore this rule, and it's so much better, but, well, what can you do? On top of that, the wide shot is, just Ingrid and the ref demon talking. That's it. Yeah. Admittedly, this does show a bit of Saint Jump Kick and how imposing it is with the skull theme, but, like, that's it. So, I don't know, okay? This is early on, so we have to give it the benefit of the doubt, because Crush's art style evolves so much over the course of BlackWidow Apocalypse that you can't really hold it to them if the earlier ones aren't as good as the later ones. So it just loops around to being mediocre. And before you ask, well, what if you took the wide shot from the top and went down? It just is the ref demon explaining how Bastard Sword is trying to swindle a win out of getting Izzy to die before she actually reaches him. So, I mean, if you like explanations, then sure, maybe put that wherever you want on the tier list, but it doesn't help here. Chapter 5, Greeting the Disease, Part 3. Now, this, admittedly, is another issue with Part 3 or Part 2, just a sequel chapter, but, I mean, it at least has the decency to look fucking awesome. Weirdly, it's giving me a little Super Mario with Izzy going up to Bowser's castle, almost, but I think it's just really cool. Her pipe is drenched in blood and oil. The gates are massive and imposing. At the top is a skull with horns that says something in Latin, which I just ran through Google Translate, and it says kill or be killed. For a giant that decided to start a high school to get his own child soldier program thing, he's got some flair to him, you gotta give him that. Hey, even outside of the decorations in Latin, I mean, he's got a suit on 24/7. And you know he had to get that custom made because he's 300 feet tall. Personally, I don't think Greeting the Disease 3 is as good as the original Greeting the Disease, because again, it is a sequel chapter. However, I do think it's far, far above the other one in the cool enough tier, the Part 2, because the Part 2 doesn't have a cool wide shot, but it's a sequel chapter. Greeting the Disease Part 3 is a sequel chapter, sure, but it has an awesome Mario, apparently, from my point of view, wide shot that shows Latin. It's imposing, it's brilliant. I think it's good, but it isn't amazing yet, because the original Greeting the Disease is simple, short, sweet, doesn't have a lot of details. It's just, Izzy's fucking pissed. And to be fair, I mean, that's kind of all the time, but it's pretty self-explanatory, it's cool, done and dusted. This, it's cool, but then there's tiny little details which sort of tip it over the edge. But the sequel chapter status just, it drags it a bit too far down. Chapter 6, The Half-Blind and the Dead. Now, that is a brilliant title, but it's almost bound to be amazing just from the title alone, because, you know, it's kind of the point of the video. However, the wide shot it's just the middle of the fight. That's it. I'm not too bothered by it. It's the same vein as part 4. It's just something is happening, boom. Not, here's the cool shot, go in, like it should be. It's just mid, basically. However, because of how good the actual title is, even though the design is, again, pretty basic, it's just clawing its way at the bottom of amazing. If it wasn't for the implications behind The Half-Blind and the Dead, being that later on it shows that was Ingrid's, and still is Ingrid's, core driving force, that if someone takes an eye, you don't give an eye for an eye, you give a life for an eye. You make sure they'll never take any more eyes, thus creating a world of the half-blind and the dead. So due to the fact it has better shading, a better title, and also a cool meaning, it's much higher in amazing than the original Greeting the Diseases, tell you that much. And my old worst enemy comes back in Chapter 7, The Half-Blind and the Dead 2. Sequel chapter again. And whilst, yeah, it's literally just a chop and change from the original Half-Blind and the Dead, the wide shot is so much better. We get to see the aftermath of the fight, having completely reduced the entire school to rubble. Izzy standing up whilst holding Bastard Sword's cut off arm. This is amazing, but it's a sequel chapter. However, just because it's a sequel chapter doesn't mean it isn't just overall the same thing, but better. And this is literally the same thing, but slightly better. So it goes just over the original Half-Blind and the Dead in amazing. And we get to the one I foreshadowed a bit earlier. Chapter 8, Napalm for Breakfast. 0 out of 10. There was no napalm eaten in this chapter. Oh, don't worry, I kid. But, seriously, that doesn't make sense. Napalm for Breakfast doesn't have anything to do with fire. It doesn't even have anything to do with breakfast. It's just the title. This is another problem with BlackWidow Apocalypse titles, is that sometimes they just make zero sense and is probably just whatever Crush thought of at the time and slapped on the title. So this is never going to be a high one, and sadly the wide shot doesn't really save it either. Like, yeah, it's cool, it's ominous, it's showing Deadhead for the first time, and it shows him killing somebody before they even notice that he's moved. I don't know, it's pretty meh, and it's got a weird title, and the title itself isn't designed too interestingly. Like, the only thing that I could say is pretty cool is that the 8 almost looks like the back of a Black Widow spider, and it's a Black Widow Apocalypse. Oh, cool. Totally no spiders in Black Widow Apocalypse either, which, first of all, is a major letdown, and second of all, it doesn't make sense. So, okay, but why though? So, did everyone like Napalm for Breakfast? What's that? You wanted another one? Okay, well here's the exact same thing, but worse. Napalm for Breakfast 2, or Chapter 9, is awful. It's just not good. Firstly, I will admit it's showing that because 8 was red, it was Deadhead's time to shine. And now with 9, it's purpley, blue, tealy colour. I don't know, lavender? I can't tell. Either way, it's Mac's time to shine. Mac. Does anyone actually care about Mac? And all I hear echoing from the fourth wall is no. Or maybe just nothing, but no. The colours meaning everything, cool, like that. Mac, don't really care about him. It's a sequel chapter, still doesn't make sense, there is no point. However, it isn't exactly terrible because it does its job and it's not outwardly unpleasing to look at. So, okay, but why though? Chapter 10, Gunshots at the Opera. Now this is one of my favourite physical designs because look at the 10. Of course, being the chapter where we first fully see Nathan Discord, it being the same goo that Nathan Discord oozes and is part of his body is perfect. And it's even his true form's eye in the middle of the 10. This is just amazing to look at. However, oh my god, I'm finally at that kitchen. Anyway, whilst, yes, the 10 and the Gunshots of the Opera part of it is brilliant. The actual title screen, amazing. The words, Gunshots at the Opera, are made out of Nathan Discord's body. It's perfect. However, the problem is the wide shot again. It is literally just Ingrid and Rude Boy talking. That's it. There's nothing more to it. Yeah, okay, maybe the fact that it's building up to Ingrid and Rude Boy going to fight Nathan Discord and they're like, oh, are we ready to put a stop to this thing? Like, that's cool, but we know this is years ago. We know they get fucked, like, really badly. So it doesn't mean anything. It's not that ominous in that case, so it just falls flat. But again, this is mainly about the art of just the title. Everything else is just the complementary stuff. Like, this is the meat, that is the potatoes. If you have bad potatoes, it doesn't really hinder much because you still like the meat. If you have bad meat, then of course that hinders everything. You know what I mean? Hopefully you do get what I mean, because I only speak in food language mostly. But if you ever met me in real life, you would completely understand why. But the actual ranking of it is... it's more visually appealing than the first two, which are imperfect. But the first two have really deep hidden meanings. There are no guns in this, and there are also no operas in this chapter. There's nothing to do with them. So why is it called that? It makes no sense. However, it is a really, really cool title name, even if it doesn't have operas or gunshots, or even guns in general. So, might as well put it just below perfect. I don't know, I might make another tier in the middle at some point, but it can't be perfect because it doesn't have a meaning. It doesn't make sense. However, the 10 looks amazing. And you want to know what else is amazing? The tier it's going in. Starting to regret not cropping these images so heavily. Oh well. Moving on. Chapter 11, Gunshots at the Opera 2, because of course this one also has a sequel chapter. Right off the bat, I see a very big pro and a very big con. The con is the fact that it's got the same issue as the Half-Blind and the Dead chapter 1, which is it's happening in the middle of a fight. So it just happens out of nowhere and there's nothing building up to it, or there's nothing building up from it. However, it looks the exact same as the first Gunshots of the Opera, which means the 11 and the title looks bloody amazing. In fact, it looks better than Gunshots at the Opera 10, because the 11 has 2 eyes in it, and the, what is that, semicolon or colon? I don't remember specifically because my punctuation's shit, but whatever the 2 dots are between the 11 and the title also have eyes in them. It makes the entire thing look alive, and that is the point of Nathan Discord. He is the darkness, period. All of it, and every shadow he can look out of. And what would you know, the 11 is made out of shadows, which means he can look out at it, look out at the readers even. It's amazing. I love that. I think that's brilliant, which means it has to go above the original Gunshots at the Opera one, because I mean, it's just that, but more detail. And yeah, I know it's a sequel chapter, so it's a bit lazy. However, at the same time, right, you get the original Godzilla, right? But you're not going to say the original Godzilla is better designed than MonsterVerse Godzilla. I mean, some of you might, because GXK made him quote-unquote woke, which I'm not even going to bother to try and understand what that means anymore. So it's all up to interpretation, but my interpretation says that big fuck-off lizard that can do all this crazy stuff is better than old puppet lizard, right? Better title design that's technically copying the first title design, but the first title design is worse than it. It's still better. Make sense? Good. Moving on. Actually, not moving on, because it's not in perfect still, because Gunshots at the Opera still doesn't make any sense. Same problem as the first one, just better than the first one, because it has more detail. Except maybe the 10 is a tiny bit better, but it's close. It's close. Probably just keep it like that, move on. Chapter 13, Gunshots at the Opera 3. On one hand, it's the exact same design as the previous 2, so it slowly starts to get more and more worn off. However, the wide shot actually helps it for once. We get to see Ingrid's father for the first time, and basically the only time. Basically, abridging it and reading it out, she was the reason why her father left the bloodbath, so Nathan was sent out to go kill him. When she was 6, Nathan found him, and he did kill her father. But, of course, since she wasn't related to the bloodbath, he left her alone. And just, it's such a good scene to show why Ingrid is the way she is, because she thinks because of her father died. If she wasn't born, her father wouldn't have been tracked by Nathan Discord. It's amazing, and it shows how much she believes that the bloodbath is absolutely terrible, and cements her actions like 30 chapters that direction in the future. And also, of course, giving her a very good reason to hate Nathan Discord. On top of all that, the way it's worded is just so gut-wrenching at times. It's brilliant. I can't help but absolutely love this scene, so I have to give it the top spot in amazing. But of course, since Gunshots at the Opera means jack shit, it can't get into perfect. Apparently I just called chapter 12 chapter 13, so forget I said that. Chapter 13 for real this time, Elvis Lives. Now, before I say anything, who the fuck is Elvis? Not once in BlackWidow Apocalypse is anyone named Elvis ever mentioned. However, this is actually kind of an accurate chapter title, because this is where Zachary Claremont comes back to life. Sort of. Undead? Yeah, undead. And of course, this being either one of our first or the first time we get to see hell, especially in the title shot showing it. Brilliant. And of course, the title itself being white on a black background, which is very unique to this point. And of course, the fact that it looks very fiery. like it's scratching and burning, which is very, very accurate to what Zachary becomes. By the way, here's a little drinking game for you. Every time I say, and of course, take a shot. See how long it takes until you drop. Back to the ranking, though. Here's an issue I've found. It's just talking again. It's not showing a massive wide shot of hell, then saying Elvis lives, and then it goes on to the talking afterwards, which is what it should do. But instead, it's showing a massive wide shot of hell, going on to the talking, then getting to Elvis lives, which just doesn't feel right. Now we have my issue of actually ranking the damn thing. So, Elvis Lives. Does it compare to Gunshots at the Opera? I'm not sure. They're so close. I'm actually kind of thinking really hard about it, because there has to be an answer, as Elvis Lives has his cool fiery effects, which shows what he's going to become in later with the Undying Slaughter, and the fact that his opponent is Gunshots at the Opera, which shows a lot of Nathan Discord. Nathan Discord is cool, so is the Undying Slaughter. So you know what? I'm going to put it to a coin toss on which character I like more, and I like Nathan Discord more. So Elvis Lives is going just below the first of the Gunshots at the Opera. However, it is interchangeable. It could go either way in my mind. Chapter 14, Cannibalism in Colour. There's no cannibalism in this, and the title has no colour to it. On top of all that, it's another talking one, which is always horrible, except in this case it kind of isn't. You probably want to know what's happening, so it makes sense it would start a few days later, show that all the Nathan Discord stuff's done, blown over, we're moving on to something else, and might as well just shove you straight into it and show, look at this massive stadium, there's cooking apparently, and somehow Izzy is involved, and if she's involved, then I guess we as the readers have to be involved. Makes sense? Just plain boring. I'm honestly really unhappy with this one for some reason. It's just plain white. However, there's always a catch, and I would immediately put this in boring if it wasn't for the fact the four is shaped like a knife, which is really smart. So I like that, and it also looks really sharp and jagged, as if it's been cut out and not like painted on. I don't know why it took me so long to think about, but I think that barely saves it from boring, but it's really close. I've got my eyes on you, Cannibalism in Colour. Now, Chapter 15, Fresh Paradise. Now, I have to give it props immediately for just being funny. The beach, sun, surf, and slaughter. And Ingrid's reaction gets me every time. So it's definitely one of the better talk versions of the start, instead of it just being, oh, here's a wide shot and then going into it, which it should normally be. This one basically does both, because it doesn't have much to talk about, it just shows, and it's funny. So thumbs up there. As well, Fresh Paradise, text really bad, however the number looks like it's sand and it's falling. Brilliant. I like that. It's amazing. And of course, paradise. And Luther Lotus says that this is his little paradise. It makes sense. So it's funny. It looks good enough in both the shot and also the text, as well as having a tiny little flair to it. I say that's cool enough. Chapter 16, Shut, Shout, Shootout. Arguably one of the lesser chapters, personally. Also, the first that actually was pretty difficult to take a photo of, because on my phone, it goes from the top to where, of course, the title is. So you just take a picture of all of that, right? Well, can't get all of that in a screenshot. So it's actually quite difficult to figure out how I should rank this in relation to what's above it. Because what's above it is basically just a story in of itself. But I shall try to rank it fairly regardless. And thankfully, that's pretty easy. Because it's kind of just boring, to be honest. So this is the baseball episode. Yeah. But to give them credit, shout shootouts, again, semicolon thingy between the 16 and the letters. Instead of it being dots, it's baseballs. So, very funny. And the story in of itself is admittedly kind of humorous because it's a Russian cyborg. Yeah, I know, that's a cyborg. There's human in that thing, by the way. That is playing baseball against specifically American baseball players because it was from the Cold War era and it hates America. What the hell? Now, Black Widow Apocalypse isn't exactly normal. I mean, we have giants making high schools to get super soldiers. We have flesh witches falling from the sky that physically do not have hearts. And, wow, voice crack. And also, whatever the fuck Nathan is. Oh yeah, and demons too. But a Soviet cyborg that hates American baseball players because it was built during the Cold War is definitely a new one. Overall, the art's pretty good, but the story's pretty meh, and the actual title is lacking. It's got one interesting detail, and that's it. I'm sorry, but it's boring. Because at least Cannibalism in Colour has multiple interesting details. It all looks like it's been carved out, and the floor looks like a knife. Shootout just has tennis balls, or baseballs, or whatever you want to call them, I don't care. It has balls, that's it. Big whoop. So this ended up being really long, so I had to cut it here so we can fit them all into different parts. We're likely to have 2 parts after this, and then that'll be all the chapters. If you want me to conjoin it all into one massive long episode, I could do that as well at some point. But for now, see ya.